Warning: the content ahead may be frightening or distressing to some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. For weeks, neighbors complained about the house on Westcott Street. Its smell, its noises, the way it seemed to lean a bit closer to the sidewalk each day. The structure had always been old, but lately it had begun to look swollen. When police finally forced their way inside, they expected to find a body. Instead, they found silence. A silence so thick that it seemed to cling to their clothes. A silence that seemed aware of them. The occupant, Dale Mercer, had vanished. Yet something in the walls continued whispering his name. Weeks earlier, Dale had hired contractors to repair the hallway plaster. The wall had begun to bulge, forming a soft dome beneath the wallpaper. Everyone assumed it was moisture or termites. When the workers removed a section, they found another wall directly behind it, smooth, seamless, and built with materials older than the house itself. Almost like someone had hidden a smaller chamber inside the house. When the workers tapped on it, the sound came back hollow, followed by a faint trailing whisper. Too quiet to understand, too deliberate to dismiss. The contractors left early that day and never returned. That night, Dale heard the whisper again, coming from the same patch of wall, but softer, like syllables scraped through wood. Dale tried to ignore it, but the whispering persisted, learning the shape of language with clumsy eagerness. Not sentences, just noises at first. Clicks, sighs, wet, breathy exhalations. Then, after days of repetition, the sounds sharpened into crude approximations of speech. They said his name. Dale, Dale. The whispering always came from inside the wall. Always too low, always too close. He bought new locks for his bedroom door. He began avoiding the hallway entirely. But the house was old, and sound traveled. Some nights he woke thinking someone stood in his room, only to find the whispering muffled behind the drywall. Never loud, never urgent, but constant, as if practicing. The hallway began to narrow, not all at once, not in a way a visitor would notice. But little by little, day by day, the space between the walls tightened. Frames that once hung straight now tilted inward. A bookshelf stood half an inch further from the wall each morning. The house emitted small pops and creaks in the dark, the same way wood does when it shifts, except this wasn't natural settling. It felt timed, rhythmic, like breathing. Dale pressed his palm to the bulging spot in the plaster and felt warmth beneath it. Slow waves of heat pulsing at intervals far too long to be human. Something behind the wall was sleeping, and waking, and sleeping again. 2 weeks after the renovation, the wallpaper split open. A thin vertical tear revealed compacted insulation, rotten wood, and behind it, something white, round, wet, reflective. An eye, human in shape, but far too large, watching through the crack with an unblinking, glassy stare. Its pupil contracted when Dale entered the room. The whispering began again, eager, as if excited to finally be seen. It formed clearer syllables. Dale, home. He shut the door. He pushed furniture against it. But all night long, he heard the wet blinking coming from inside the wall. And something else, breathing, not his. The voice no longer needed to whisper. It spoke with confidence, sentence fragments first, then crude mimicry. Sometimes it repeated conversations overheard during the day. Sometimes it rehearsed his own voice, getting closer each night. The house began swallowing sound in strange ways. Footsteps no longer echoed properly. Rooms felt too quiet. One could stand in the kitchen and hear breathing from the attic, but not the other way around. The geometry of the house felt wrong, as though the rooms were shifting slightly when no one was looking, as if the unseen space between the walls were growing wider, and always, from somewhere deep within that space, came movement, soft, padded, gathering speed. Something inside the walls was learning how to use the space, how to navigate it, how to come closer. Dale tried to leave. The front door resisted as if the frame had shrunk around it. The windows warped shut. The back door had swollen so tightly that even kicking it left only dents. The house had trapped him, not figuratively, literally bending its own structure to hold him inside. All the while, the voice behind the plaster grew more articulate. "Don't go. Stay. Stay with us." The plural form troubled him most. Sometimes he pressed his ear to the wall out of a desperate need to understand. Big mistake. Immediately, something on the other side pressed back, like a hand made of too many joints tapping in response. He recoiled, but the tapping followed him down the wall, keeping pace. Something was mapping his movements. The house began chewing. The sound came late at night. Wet, fibrous tearing, like insulation and old timber being pulled apart strand by strand. Something inside the walls was clearing space, creating room to move. The bulges beneath the wallpaper multiplied. Some were tall, as if limbs were stretching. Others were wide, like torsos, flattening themselves to slide through impossible cracks. One bulge pulsed visibly, rising and falling like a heartbeat under cloth. Dale barricaded himself in the bedroom, but the chewing never stopped. Every night it sounded closer. The house was growing a cavity, or a mouth, a space waiting to be filled. And the voice, confident now, spoke clearly through the wall, almost open, almost through. The crack in the wall widened on its own. Plaster split in long, sticky strands that curled outward like peeling skin. Inside the darkness, shapes shifted with slow, deliberate purpose. Hands slid between beams. Too long, too many knuckles. Faces pressed against the opening, half-formed like clay sculpted blind. Some resembled Dale. Some resembled nothing human at all. They smiled when they saw him. The house exhaled, drawing in the air of the room like a lung finding its full capacity. Dust lifted from the floor. The walls expanded. The entities inside spoke together now, their voices layering over each other like a crowd in a distant stadium. Home. 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 Something stepped out of the cavity. Not fully, just enough to show it could. The last words Dale wrote, found later in a notebook on the floor, were simple. There was never something in the walls. The walls themselves were the something. By the time the authorities broke inside, the crack had sealed shut, the bulges had flattened, and the house had grown silent again. But sometimes, late at night, the neighbors swear the house leans even closer to the sidewalk, as if listening, as if waiting for someone new to move in.